Alex, previously we spoke about bringing a plan to a meeting that we could work through at the end, and yeah, that sounds all very fine in theory, but there's also a big thing there about running out of time so that you've got the plan. So that's a big phenomenon that I've experienced, and I'm just wondering about what's your view on that, and what are some of the things that we can do to manage our time effectively so that we can plan at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, it's a really great question, and one of the challenges that this process that we've been talking about over many of these videos of really engaging your customer at the early part of a meeting so that you can really figure out what's going on for them, so that when you tell your story, it links to what's important to them. It's relevant to them, and it's very, very much in the moment for them as well. Is that engagement process bleeds time away, and I've experienced it. You've just said you've experienced it. You get to the end of the meeting, no matter how well thought through your plan is, you rush it, and that's where it starts to fall apart. So have a plan, as we've said in previous video, but then pace yourself during the meeting. Just think about that for a second. Pace yourself during the meeting. So our recommendations on that are, if you think about the total time as 100%, you're going to have a little bit of time lost at the beginning and the end for the niceties and the usual sort of stuff that happens around a meeting. But if you want to do your post at the beginning of the meeting, remember that's talking about the purpose, the outcome, the structure, and the timing. Okay, those four things at the beginning of the meeting. And then you're probably going to spend something like, and I'm deliberately vague about it, 40 to 45%. Okay, so that's a lot more than some people might consider. 44 to 45% of your time exploring what's going on for your customers. So asking questions, listening, being curious, and so on. And plan around about 20% of your time for your story. So it should be a much shorter period of time than it would be for most people, which would be a great relief to many of your customers. And critically, 10 to 15% of the total meeting time to land the plan and agree the details around it. Now, there's a little bit of margin for error in there as well on those numbers. But essentially what you're doing is you're making sure that you are getting towards the end of your meeting and you're landing having fully completed the plan by pacing yourself during it.
Okay, so there's something really important there about going into that intentionally with a timeline in mind and leaving sufficient time at the end. And you mentioned a number of about 15%, which is probably more than most people would ever dream of that. But I guess the benefit of that is you're more likely to get some joint agreement, and more likely also to not have to have another meeting or another call just to confirm what we actually agreed. So there's a productivity measure in there as well.
Yeah, and that process means that you need to stay agile and adaptable in the moment, but having an eye on the time that you've spent and breaking the meeting down to those phases, it gives you so much more control, and you're so much more likely to land at the time you need to.
Great advice. Thanks, Alex.